guys, and welcome back to another video in this week's intermediate tutorial. So in this video, we're going to be talking about a new fancy topic, Java polymorphism. We probably have heard this before in some fantasy novels and such, and basically polymorphism means many forms. So you might have read about characters that can take many forms and things like that. Well, basically, this is what Java polymorphism is. It's basically when we have methods and classes that are related to each other, or many forms of these methods in the classes. Now, a couple of things I want to touch base on. You might not be able to connect the dots quite yet, but I'm going to touch base on them. We'll do our physical written example, and then hopefully we'll be able to string together the idea again. So this is kind of a continuation from the inheritance video, because remember last time in the inheritance video I showed you there were two ways to create the object, and it was subclass object is equal to new subclass. That was the one we did. Now this one is superclass object is equal to new subclass. So a different way of creating our object, and most professionals prefer this second way. So we'll see how to use that. And also, I want to bring up to you two new things, one old, one new. These both fall into the category of polymorphism, but we've done this before actually. It was actually a few weeks ago, I don't know if you remember, I had a video about method overloading, and it was basically when we had methods with the same name, but they had the different parameters, but it was all in the same class. I don't know if you remembered that. But it was like one function took in integer inputs, the other function took in double inputs, and so it was basically the same name in the function, but it had different parameters. That was method overloading. Now the one we're working on today is method overriding, and that's when it's the same function, but it does different things in the subclasses. And so the original superclass function gets overridden. You'll see what I mean in a second. Now I have a written example, and we're going to basically copy this, but I wanted to walk through and show you guys. So my first superclass, the parent class, is shapes. And all that does is have a function that finds the area and says we can find the area of all the shapes. Now then I created two child classes, circle and triangle, and they extend the shapes class. Now, since to find the area of circles and triangles, we need a little bit of extra inputs, well, you can't pass in inputs. You can't take in parameters in these functions here. So I can't just do the same find area function, but with inputs, because that would be method overloading, and that wouldn't work. So that means that we'd have to use a constructor. So I used a constructor. As you can see, I created a constructor here. We might have to touch base on that again. And then I use the same exact function name, no parameters like always, except this time I changed what it does inside. Same thing with triangle. I made a constructor for the base and the height, and then same function name, no parameters. And then in the main function, I just ran my code. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to work that out ourselves, and then we'll talk through it about why I went through all that trouble. So let me create a new Java file, and let's create it. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create my shapes parent class. So all shapes generally do the same thing essentially, and you can almost always find their area. Well, let's just think 8th grade, 7th grade. I say 7th grade. Yeah, 7th grade and above. We can pretty much find the area of all the shapes we see. So let me create a new file when this thing loads. Let's create a new file called shapes.java, and this is our parent class, right? So once we have shapes.java and REPL it, there we go, we're going to say class shapes, and I'm just going to start it off with a function, public void area. And then we're going to say, and no inputs here, and I'll explain why this is so important. We're going to say system.out.println. We can find the area of all shapes. And that's it. I'm just going to leave my shapes function as is, and I'm going to work on my other extended classes. So first things first, let's do triangle. I'd say mathematically it's easier. So we all know the equation of a triangle, right? Excuse me while I Google it. I'm just kidding. It's half times base times height. So we do class triangle extends shapes. So this is an inherited class. Now I'm not allowed to take in parameters for my area function. Why? Because for my parent class, for the function that was the original, the OG, I didn't take in any parameters, so I'm not allowed to create the same function with parameters in my inherited classes. That's just like a rule. It's not going to work if you do that. So in order to pass in values, then I'll create my constructor. So I'm going to create my private variable, private int base, private int height. And if you don't remember this, go check out the constructor video I made. It's called Intro to Constructors. Pretty easy to find. So then I'm going to create my constructor. So I'm going to say public triangle. And I'm going to say int base, int height, which means that when we run our constructor function while creating the object, we're going to have to give a base and a height immediately. We're just going to say whatever input that you take in from the constructor function is going to be the value of your private variable over here. So this dot base is equal to base, this dot height is equal to height. Okay, so our constructor is done. Now let's create our function. So the function name was area, so we're going to say public void area, and again, not allowed to take in any parameters, and we'll just print out the area. Pretty simple. We're going to say the area of your triangle is plus half, so 0.5 times base times height. There we go. Okay, and this is the correct mathematical formula. And so up until now, guys, we should understand everything that we've done. We've created some variables in the class, we've created a constructor for the class, and we've created a function, a simple function. It doesn't even do much. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for our circle, and then we're going to run it in our main code. So circle.java, and we're going to say class circle extends shapes. So this is another inherited class. And I'm going to again start off with a private int radius because we need a radius for our circle. And I'm going to create my constructor again. So we do public circle int radius. Hello, there we go. Okay, and we're going to say this dot radius is equal to radius. There we go, constructor, check. So now, last but not least, we'll create our public static void, nope, not static, sorry, just public void area. So still the area function, not changing. And we're going to say system.out.println. The area of your circle is plus, it's pi r squared. So we do 3.14 times radius times radius, because it's radius squared, so radius times radius. Okay, so we're done with all of our code for our parent and child classes. Now, the last step is to run it in our main function. So let's come to our main function, and first things first, I'm going to create an object for all of these. Now for the shapes, it's easy. Shapes, my shape is equal to new shape. This is the standard we're used to. However, we're going to do things a little bit differently for our circle and triangle. We're going to do shapes. Circle is equal to new circle. See how this is a little bit different? Instead of saying circle is equal to new circle, or shape circle is equal to new shape, I did shapes circle is equal to new circle. So yeah, that's one thing that I wanted to let you guys know that you guys could do. Then we did shapes triangle is equal to new triangle. So we're going to work like this today, except this has to be uppercase and semicolon. So now that we've created all of our objects, I'm just going to quickly do my shape dot area, my circle dot area, my triangle dot area. Okay, now what am I missing here? So I'm missing a couple of my inputs, right? Well, if you were to create your functions such that you took in 2 inputs here without your constructor, then it would give you an error because shapes, this area function, does not have any inputs. So because of that reason, we went and we used the constructor. Now when we did the constructor, that means oops, our IDE is having some trouble. Let's reload the page. I'll keep talking though. That meant that when we use constructors, as soon as we create the object, so while we're creating the object in the same line, we can give it values. So we were missing that part. So let's give those values in there at the very beginning there. So in our circle, we have to give 1 number for our radius. And then for our triangle, we give 1 number for the base and 1 number for the height. So I'm just going to plug some random numbers in. So circle takes in 1, let's do 5. Triangle takes in 2 numbers, let's do 4 and 8. So yeah, let's run the code and see what happens. So we run it and let's give it a second to see if it's going to load. Oh no, I have some errors. Let's see what happened first. So shapes, aha. So the first one, shapes, it's not shape, this should be plural. My bad, guys, a little bit of typos, sorry. And then what are my other errors here? Base and height, that's another one. Okay, so I can't read all of these errors all at once, so I'm going to try and fix my triangle error and then see what other errors I have. My other typo was I did base and height. It should be base times height. So again, another typo. Sorry guys, kind of embarrassing to see all of these errors pop up, but it's okay. You guys just know I'm human too. We can work through these errors together. So we have 2 more. Let's work through these. My circle dot area, and then cannot find symbol for my triangle dot area. So looking at these 2, they're both in our main, and let's figure out how we can find them. So, aha. Well, guys, my bad. I did my circle dot area and my triangle dot area. Well, do my circle and my triangle exist? Well, the answer, guys, is no, because it's circle and triangle. Now, I could either fix this by changing this to circle dot triangle or circle or triangle dot area and circle dot area, or I could just add my onto here and my onto here. And so now these objects actually exist. Previously, these objects didn't exist because I forgot to add the my. So now all of my errors should be resolved. Let's run it. 3rd time's the charm, right? So let's see how it does. So we ran the code again and it works. So all of this says we can find the area of all shapes, which was the first one for the my shape. And then we said the area of your circle is 78.5. I'm not sure how true that is, but I'm assuming it's right. And then the area of your triangle is 16. Now we can verify that by doing 32 divided by 2, which is indeed 16. Right, so as you can see, guys, we just did a little bit of a different exercise today. This is Java polymorphism, and you guys saw how I personally think it simplifies your life a lot more. Right, so in review, polymorphism means many forms, and what we just did here was method overriding, because your triangle and circle methods overrode the original shapes method. And yeah, we can basically cater each individual function to lots of different types, right? Because each class sometimes will do something a little different, right? So that's basically our polymorphism video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.